Hi, everyone. Up to this point, most of the cells we've explored have been prokaryotic. Small, efficient cells that carry out life without internal compartments. But some cells took a very different evolutionary path. Instead of keeping everything mixed together in one shared internal space, these cells divided different functions into specialized compartments. As you look at the image on this opening slide, notice how complex and organized a eukaryotic cell appears compared to the simpler bacterial cells we studied earlier. Different regions of the cell perform different jobs. Some structures process proteins, some generate energy, some organize and protect DNA. This strategy, called compartmentalization, allowed cells to become larger, more specialized, and eventually multicellular. In this lecture, we'll explore how eukaryotic cells organize life internally and how that organization changed the history of life on Earth. By the end of this module, you should be able to identify major organelles of eukaryotic cells and describe their functions, and explain how compartmentalization allows eukaryotic cells to perform complex functions more efficiently. As you look at the image on this slide, notice the dramatic differences between the two cells. On the right is a prokaryotic cell. Its DNA and ribosomes exist together in a shared internal space with relatively little compartmentalization. On the left is a eukaryotic cell. Instead of keeping everything mixed together, the cell is divided into specialized compartments called organelles. You can see structures like the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, and mitochondria, each carrying out different cellular functions. This compartmentalization is one of the defining characteristics of eukaryotic life. Eukaryotic cells are generally larger than prokaryotic cells and possess a much higher degree of internal organization. By separating different reactions into different regions, eukaryotic cells can regulate processes more efficiently and support more complex forms of life. One of the defining features of eukaryotic cells is the presence of a nucleus. Unlike prokaryotic cells, where DNA is located in the nucleoid region without a surrounding membrane, eukaryotic DNA is enclosed inside a membrane-bound nucleus. As you look at the images on this slide, notice the nuclear envelope surrounding the genetic material. This material, or this membrane, physically separates the DNA from the cytoplasm. That separation is extremely important because it allows eukaryotic cells to regulate gene expression in much more complex ways. Processes such as transcription and RNA processing occur inside the nucleus before genetic information is exported to the cytoplasm for protein synthesis. You can also see a darker structure inside the nucleus called the nucleolus. The nucleolus is the site where ribosomal RNA is produced and where ribosome assembly begins. The nucleus, therefore, acts as both a storage center for genetic information and a major control center for cellular activity. This increased compartmentalization is one of the key reasons eukaryotic cells can become larger, more specialized, and more complex than prokaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells contain an extensive internal membrane system that functions almost like a cellular manufacturing and shipping network. As you look at the diagram on this slide, notice how many of these organelles are physically connected or interact closely with one another. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, or rough ER, is covered with ribosomes. These ribosomes synthesize proteins that may be secreted from the cell, inserted into membranes, or used in organelles. The smooth ER lacks ribosomes and is involved in lipid synthesis, membrane production, and other important metabolic functions. Once proteins and lipids are produced, many are transported to the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi functions almost like a processing and packaging center. It modifies molecules, sorts them, and prepares them for transport to different parts of the cell or outside the cell. You can also see vesicles budding between these structures. Vesicles are small membrane-bound sacs that transport materials throughout the cell. This compartmentalized transport system allows eukaryotic cells to efficiently move molecules to the correct location while keeping different biochemical processes organized and separated. Pardon me. Two of the most important energy-related organelles in eukaryotic cells are mitochondria and chloroplasts. Mitochondria are responsible for generating most of the cell's ATP through cellular respiration. As you look at the mitochondria, let me go back here. As you look at the mitochondrion on the right side of this slide, or of this slide, notice the highly folded inner membrane. These folds, called cristae, increase surface area for the reactions involved in ATP production. Chloroplasts, shown on the left, are found in plants and algae and perform photosynthesis. They capture light energy and convert it into chemical energy stored in sugars. Inside chloroplasts, you can see stacks of membrane structures called thylakoids. These membranes contain pigments and proteins involved in the light reactions of photosynthesis. One especially interesting feature of both mitochondria and chloroplasts is that they contain their own DNA and ribosomes. This has led to the endosymbiotic theory, which proposes that these organelles originally evolved from free-living prokaryotic cells that form symbiotic relationships with ancient eukaryotic cells. So although mitochondria and chloroplasts are now organelles within eukaryotic cells, they still retain some characteristics of their bacterial ancestry. Eukaryotic cells contain an internal structure framework called the cytoskeleton. As you look at the images on this slide, notice the network like fibers extending throughout the cells. These protein filaments form a dynamic internal support system that helps organize the entire cell. The cytoskeleton is made up of several major types of protein fibers, including microtubules, actin filaments, and intermediate filaments. Microtubules are large, hollow structures built from tubulin proteins. They help organize organelles, form tracks for intracellular transport, and play major roles during cell division. Actin filaments are thinner fibers involved in cell shape changes and movement. They are especially important in processes such as muscle contraction and cellular motility. Intermediate filaments provide additional structural strength and help cells resist mechanical stress. Together, the cytoskeleton helps maintain cell shape, position organelles, move materials throughout the cell, and coordinate cell division. Unlike a rigid skeleton in the human body, the cytoskeleton is highly dynamic. Its components can rapidly assemble and disassemble as the needs of the cell change. As we finish this lecture, it is important to recognize that the major advantages of eukaryotic cells is organization through compartmentalization. Instead of having all cellular processes occur together in a single shared space, eukaryotic cells separate different functions into specialized organelles. This separation allows incompatible reactions to occur independently. For example, some reactions require acidic conditions, while others require completely different environments. Compartmentalization also improves efficiency because enzymes and reactants can be concentrated within specific organelles rather than dispersed throughout the entire cell. As you look at the diagram on this slide, notice how many specialized structures exist inside a single eukaryotic cell. Different organelles perform functions, allowing cells to become highly specialized. This organization supports much larger cell sizes and allows cells to carry out more complex activities than most prokaryotic cells. Most importantly, this increased complexity ultimately made multicellular life possible. Specialized eukaryotic cells work together in tissues and organs, allowing the evolution of plants, animals, fungi, and other complex organisms. So, while prokaryotic cells are highly efficient and successful, eukaryotic cells represent a major evolutionary step towards greater cellular complexity and specialization. With that, I want to point out that I did not cover in detail many of the eukaryotic organelles. If you would like more detail on that, there are videos on my YouTube channel and on other YouTube channels for that matter, that cover the different, like more detail on the different cellular components. So feel free to take your time and look at those videos if you're interested. The way that I'm going to approach it is that we're going to talk about them like as they come up in different parts of the semester. And with that, thank you for attending this lecture and see you next time.